he's bad, he's good. No articulation of the argument or point. So what is education? I always thought education was about giving the student the skills and knowledge to progress to a state where they can gain more information and develop more skills in the teacher. That's what education should be about. We don't have that. You've limited syllabuses, and you know, real education should be about the unlimited development of the student, and instill a love of learning into the students. We don't have that. We've got a syllabus to turn out here, limited by money. We can bail out these banks. One new school for
well,
you.
if you go back a couple of hundred years, only wealthy people, we only had universal education in the late 1800s. And if you go back a couple of years, there's only the wealthy could afford to have their kids educated, learn to read and write and so on. But they told the teachers what the kids should learn.
Yeah.
The situation we've got now is that the government dictates to ordinary parents what their kids will learn, and stuff full of propaganda now. Political propaganda. Stuff full of it.
Yeah, completely.
So ordinary parents just haven't really caught on to this yet, really.
Yeah. There's the question that then there's something wrong with them, off them up or something. First, we want to talk about the minute Edward Bernays, talk about a minute massive propaganda creator of that whole field. He talks about in this book. He says, if you have a population that can't read or write, you can't do anything. Psychological operations won't work on them. You can't condition them. They can't read or write. You have to send out soldiers to beat them out of it. Because you can't get through to them. But if they're educated to a certain level to understand propaganda, then you can get through to them. Do you know what I mean? So you have to give them a certain level of education for it to work on them. But look at it, it doesn't work. It's like a threshold. The population is trained how to fit into the constructed society for their exploitation of their labour power and to be influenced by propaganda and conditioning methods. So according to you, as military psychological operations division, what's propaganda? Propaganda is any form of communication in support of national objectives designed to influence the opinions, attitudes or behaviour of any group in order to benefit the sponsor either directly or indirectly. There we go. Edward Bernays. He's the nephew of Sigmund Freud. He's an expert in psychology and sociology in all these areas. And he went to work for CIA, went to work for all the big corporations, forming propaganda models and theory. The work this guy, and how he openly talks about these things is absolutely mind-boggling. There's some quotes in front of that book there. Created all the fluoride propaganda and set up that back in the 1940s. This book is, everyone should have this book and have a read through it. It was wrote in 1928 and it nails everything to the T. He's so honest.
You've got these book references on your CD as well, haven't you?
I have everything on the CD. He talks about, he coined ideas like consent engineering. So, and he coined the ideas of regimenting the minds of the masses. There's nothing, can never be anything positive about terms like that. I mean, he was mates with all the big bankers and all the guys in all the big corporations, I know there's big patches of his work where apparently he didn't do anything. He was probably working on all these black budget areas. Here's a quote from him. Let's hear what Edward has to say. Those who manipulate the organised habits and opinions of the masses constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of the country. It remains a fact in almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, or in our social conduct or ethical thinking, we are dominated by relatively small numbers of persons, people who control the media and education. It is they who pull the wires and control the public mind, who harness old social forces and contrive new ways to guide the world. As civilization has become more complex and as the need for invisible government has been increasingly demonstrated, the technical means have been invented and developed by which opinion may be regimented. Absolutely incredible. You look into this guy's history and read some of his publications and stuff, mind-boggling. I'm going to show just a little funny little video from on David Lennon show.
Doctor, what tell me again what the doctor is. What are we dealing with?
Right.
You're the father of
What
public
we're
relations.
dealing with really is the concept that people will believe me more if you call me doctor.
Oh, I see.
So he's the guy who was massive in all propaganda formation in Syria, who was mentioned back in the day. One of the types, broad types, he's reminded the head that came up with, people come up with early days. Broad types of propaganda, very straightforward propaganda, put out information to make people think a certain way. Any information which is put out to make people think a certain way can be defined as propaganda. This talk can be defined as propaganda. I want people to think a certain way, which is to think for themselves. I don't want people to think a certain way to support the war or kill people or whatever. Counter propaganda, put out information to counter other propaganda. Disinformation, put out propaganda which contains, inaccuracies and mistruths about certain topics. Confuse population, and then you have the straight up distraction for propaganda. Just distract them, get them to think about something else. A few World Cups or something. Just to say that when we're talking about psychological operations and propaganda, these people aren't just like going, thinking off the top of their heads. There's a whole massively funded infrastructure within all the militaries which they can come from. You have these things like in the US military, US Army War College, like an academic level institute. It's constantly churning through research in all these levels, most of it all private. And you have the Strategic Studies Institute as well. And these two groups, the World Basic Information Library and the Foreign Military Studies Office, very hard information on them, but they're briefly mentioned in some old documents. These are internal military centres which hold databases on information on every country in terms of their culture, the demographics, you name it, their religion, their age, the best way to form propaganda in that country on that target audience. Haven't carried out ongoing target audience analysis, so it's all at their fingertips. This is like the infrastructure is there. Good, show another great clip from George Carlin. Maybe some people have seen it, but I think he summarises a lot of this in a quite funny way.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks. And it's the same reason that will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long, and they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people. White collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on.